All right. If anybody is on, give me a sound check. Yesterday, apparently, my sound wasn't loud enough. So today, I'm hoping that's not a problem. I'm turning up the mic. And we're going to go live in 8 minutes. So if you're watching and you're just seeing, there's me. Oh, shit. What the fuck am I doing with my fucking career? Kidding.
Warning.
Oh, anybody got a sound check for me? Now. Working. That's weird. Hope you can see me. Jeez. Can you see me? Am I going to have problems tonight with people being able to see me? Hold on. This is not good. There we are. All right. You're scaring me. Scaring me. All right. We had fucking high up speed, we'd be fine. Fucking municipal broadband would be nice. Fucking Lancaster Connect. Stopping right in front of my house. Oh, I need high-speed internet. Fucking living in the 70s and shit. Or the 90s.
China.
Coronavirus! 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 Coronavirus!
Anybody hear that? All right, you got me sound? Oh, look at that. You're there. There you are, Tommy. You can hear me? Good, cool. What up? You know you could see me on YouTube too, bro, if you don't want to come on Facebook, so. I made this song, by the way. I think this is the one I made. Uh-oh, my bit rate. Come on now, stop. Musack. I'm a little concerned right now because this restream's telling me my bit rate is slow, which is crazy. Oh, you know what? I gotta turn that off. It's not gonna pitch to LinkedIn. I don't want to stream to LinkedIn. They won't even let me stream because they're too scared. Too scared of the language. Scared I'm gonna fuck up their professional environment. I think this is the one I made. I don't know. Maybe I didn't. I know I made a couple tracks when I was like thinking I was gonna do everything myself. We're freestyling tonight too. I made absolutely wrote no notes on this tonight. So tonight's gonna literally be me, fresh, unprepared, spinning fucking emotion about ego. I figure I could talk about ego, right? I can talk about ego. I got an ego. Everyone's got an ego. I do need to start adding some music to this shit, right? I know. I forgot about this one. I made a whole bunch of sounds. It's kind of cool because it seems like it's lowering my voice a little bit when I talk, which is nice. But I made a whole bunch of sounds on this soundboard, and I don't use them. We will, though. It's going to be a fucking journey. 5 years. 5 years from today, I want to fucking see this shit be tight as hell. Sorry, Mom. I swear a lot. Got my water. That's it, huh? Maybe this is the one I made. I did something. Yeah, I think that one's the one I made too, because it's like a loop.
Say what? Say what? Say
Yikes.
what? Yikes.
Sounds like a... Uh-oh. I'm scared what's the sound. All right, so you guys can hear me now? Like, it sounds decent? Good. I wonder what happens when I do... I want to kind of try some experimental, but I know I'm going to fuck shit up. I'm not going to try something experimental right before I go live. That's stupid. That's stupid, Nate.
China, 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 China.
All right.
China, China.
What are we at? We're 10:29.
China, China.
There's a little bit of delay here, so I got to build that into my timer because my timer's telling me it's going to be a minute. You guys are... Every platform is different. So, all right, whatever. Then... Let's do this. Let's just fucking start. Let's just fucking kick it off. All right. I am now live. I think there's a delay, and I'm trying to do something different, so I can't really see what I'm looking at yet. There we are. Okay, cool. So hopefully my nightcap fades. Cool. We're good. All right. Welcome to Nightcap. This is, my name's Nate Bomberger. This is brought to you from Smashing the Party. This is my platform where I just yell and scream at the clouds. You know the deal. Tonight, I kind of wanted to try something different. I spent a lot of time today. First of all, today was the day that I had to break my caffeine addiction because caffeine has actually been causing me to fall asleep, straight up. If you don't know, I have ADHD, so that's all fun and games. But then, so caffeine and stimulants kind of react with me differently. And, I'm not kidding. I could take a cup of coffee and drink it and then fall asleep. It's weird. It's bizarre. I threw in the drug reference yesterday. I was also notorious for, at times, doing a line of coke and falling asleep. I know. It's shameful. But truth be told, that is no longer something that I experiment with. But coffee is the brown cocaine, and I have apparently done too much of it because it makes me sleep. So... excuses aside, we're going to talk about ego tonight. I'm going to basically break it down to my 3 points. I'm going to talk about politicians, their ego, and I picked this topic because somebody sent it to me, so I figured I'd talk about it. There's no passive-aggressive bullshit for anybody on my feeds list. I'm not hammering anybody that made a post or annoyed me today. This is strictly a request that came in to say, hey, talk about ego. And the person said, you seem to have a lot of experience with it. So I don't know if that was kind of a slight on me or not, but fuck it, we're doing it. So I kind of broke it down into 3 things that I think are interesting and a way to kind of break it down so I can focus on the ego in those 3 components. The first ones are politicians. Going to talk about ego in some fashion and reference politicians. I may be specific when I go there. And then I'm going to talk about people, and I will talk about some posts that happened today as I was going through my notifications, and I was trying to make sure that I had some engagement and interaction with some folks, and I found a couple comments I didn't see before. So I'll talk about that and why it may be relevant to ego. And then I'll talk about me, my fucking ego, and I'll give you a couple anecdotes that has happened to me and something I've struggled with, and I'm going to put a little spin on it, but again, this is my show. I can do what the fuck I want. So let's just get started. By the way, Thursday nights, look, by the way, you know what I tell you that my throat's getting dry? I got my Smash in the Party mug, so we're good. But of course, that's a new, wait, is that the Rona? That feels like the Rona. I don't know what the Rona feels like. I've escaped the Rona's grasp this whole time, even though my wife had it. So I'm just waiting for it to land on me. Otherwise, maybe I'm a fucking super carrier. Anyway, that's my ego talking. Let's jump into it. Politicians and ego. Look, I'm not a psychologist. I have no formal training in what the id, the ego, the Freudian bullshit, all that stuff, all that theory. I don't even care. I'm going to reference ego in kind of the way that we talk about it, in our around the kitchen table. And that is, you think of ego, you think of it as being a veneer or kind of a shield or some kind of facade or some kind of entity that we put up that protects us or we use to exude confidence, or you could have a low ego. So that's what I'm talking about. It may not be the formal definition. This is my show. This is my ego, my show. So I'm going to talk about it how I want to talk about it. But I think everyone will get the context of what I'm talking about. And when it comes to politicians, you have to have an ego. You have to feel something. You have to feel that you are special or that you have a calling to change things. Or maybe you have the notion of maybe it's a dynasty that you're part of and you just kind of have to get into politics. Or maybe you've kind of come up from nothing and you ended up as a bartender and you saw the fucking layout of the land. You're like, fuck this, I got to run. And so you feel confident enough to do that, and you've got to have a thick skin to be a politician. You've got to have some kind of confidence or belief in yourself that you're going to be able to make changes or whatever your vision is for your career or what you want to do in public service. I believe that everybody that goes to that point believes that they are someone that can make a change, hopefully, or they believe strongly in this country, or they believe strongly in some issue that is affecting them and their constituents or people they know. So their ego says, look, I can do this. I feel like if I can get in a position where I can make changes, then I can then, change the world. And so you have to have a certain amount of, bravado. And I wanted to say, that's kind of sexist, but you have to have some kind of confidence in yourself to actually take that step, to put yourself out there in the public sphere, knowing that you're going to get hammered, knowing you're going into this swampy swampland of and quite frankly, this is something that, I struggle with when I think about, people always say to me, when are you going to run and all that shit? And trust me, there's a Library of Congress full of opposition research against me that will prevent me from ever attaining any kind of position like that. Donald Trump paved the way for someone like me, possibly. And I'm not a scumbag, but I had a sordid past. My homelessness was kind of I romanticized that as part of my history, and I don't want to romanticize that, but I talk about that as being part of my experience. But there was a time where I did not really have scruples, let's just say. And I was kind of angry at everybody. And so we'll get into that maybe when I talk about my ego. But I believe firmly, so when people, let me just close that point off. When people come at me like that, I'm just like, look, I like doing this. If I can grow this and I can make change doing this, or I can change hearts and minds by educating people, and as this thing grows, make it something special, that would be massively cool for me. And the payoff would be better than anything. I don't care if I'm in any fucking history book. I feel like I can create something that will live, on the internet as long as the internet's there. And that'll be my legacy, as I've told you before. So again, I'm kind of slipping into my ego, but I just want to kind of cut that off because, I worked for a politician and I understand kind of the horse trading that has to happen. But I struggle when I see folks like, that are in power that kind of, it's almost like they feel like they're invincible and they can do anything. And so I don't know if that's ego. I don't know if that comes with power. Again, I've never had that much power. I've been in positions of power where I'm, management, where I have folks working for me, or I'm managing something, or I'm running a team or whatever. And, I didn't get off on that. I don't get off. I like it. I enjoy it. I love it. But it wasn't, I didn't kind of puff out my chest as if I'm the top guy. And because I truly believe that, look, I'm just going into me, I guess, apparently. I truly believe that if you're going to be a person that's going to lead or make folks' lives better, and that's kind of what I believe a manager or a boss should do, then you have to be humble and you have to understand where you came from. And that leads me to my kind of the problem I have with politicians across the board. Nancy Pelosi, again, she gets all the hate from the right. I'm not going to target her, but every single one of these folks that gets to that position, they kind of garner this. They obviously their confidence has grown. They've landed this position where they have a lot of power, and so their ego can certainly get in the way. We just lived through 4 years of a megalomaniac, a narcissist, where ego was just, it was blown out of the water. There were all kinds of psychological articles written on his behavior, his sister, his family. Everybody said he was a narcissist. And so that's a whole different ball game. I'm not an expert on narcissism. We all know somebody that's narcissistic. We all might have a little slight narcissistic, pieces in us. And whether you call it narcissism or it's like self-preservation, I don't know. It's debatable. But certainly a narcissist has created a facade of phoniness because they have this vapid, this emptiness or this insecurity or this trauma that they've gone through that they've shielded themselves from. So their ego is kind of twisted, and probably not a lot of folks won't be able to relate to that, although maybe empaths would. And again, I'm getting off the topic a little bit when I talk about this, but I think that empaths and narcissists actually are two types of folks that can both read people, and one just does, likes to see it destroyed, and the other likes to see kind of it built up. That's just my opinion. So that's a whole nother animal, and I could go off and off for hours on Trump, but trying to freelance, as I said, I was freestyle tonight. I'm just going to stick to the topic of politicians, and in particular, these leaders that we have, and what that means, what ego does for them. And I truly believe that when they get there, they have good intentions. I don't think that folks run for office with bad intentions. There are folks that run for office because, for someone like Mitch Romney, he may be just closing the box and checking off boxes. He comes from a dynasty. His dad was a governor. He was a governor, and, he's got that whole Utah Mormon thing on lockdown. So, I would argue that someone like him who has all the money in the world, I don't know, I haven't seen him go in there saying, hey, look, I'm going to make major changes and I have this idea for a policy that's going to, change the fabric of this country for the better. I don't see that coming from him. I think he loves this country. I think a lot, I hope at least, I believe everybody that's in Congress cares about this country. That's why they do it. But I think that most people when they run, they have to have kind of some kind of confidence, some kind of ego, as I'm using that term loosely. But I don't necessarily think that it's all bad. I don't think ego is a bad thing necessarily, and I don't think having confidence, even being overconfident with something that, is there overconfidence if you're an expert? Maybe. I think overconfidence comes from an ego issue where you don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing. And so then you may, be overconfident. For instance, and I know I'm a little bit scatterbrained here, but I'll make this thing, I'll package it up nice for you, and hopefully you'll be able to get something out of it. But one thing that I know happens in software or any engineering or any kind of problem-solving business is you become an expert over time, and you've made mistakes, and you can kind of see where things are headed. And so you can, oftentimes folks that are in the game for a long time, even folks that are in software, and that's where I spent several years, about almost a decade, probably about 2 years short of a decade, I guess it was. But I've been programming since I was in my 20s. So I've been in the software business, and I kind of got formally into it. And it was something that I had to deal with where you don't want to look stupid. And so, a beginner mistake for an engineer is to, kind of assume that everybody else understands the problem and maybe you don't, but you don't want to look like you don't understand it. So you kind of put up this facade, or worse than that is you don't ask the right questions. And I remember going into software the first time with somebody I looked up to, and he was extremely good at what he did. That was my former boss/colleague, and who started the company. And I remember going into meetings with him when I started out, and I was just kind of amazed at how simple the questions were that he asked. And I say that because I thought, man, he's kind of looking, this is seems kind of obvious to me. You could kind of figure that on your own. But he had the humility and the knowledge and obviously the experience to understand, look, I don't know anything. Even though I know more about software than everyone in this room, I have no idea about this problem. And so he went in there kind of with a humble attitude. And I just remember specifically there was one meeting where it was I kind of had a good grasp of the whole project. He was coming in and trying to figure out there were some issues with the account. Something was happening. So he came in and he kind of sat there through this meeting, and he naively asked all these questions. And, I thought, I left there, I was like, what the hell, dude? But then as I learned, as I got to, as I rose in the ranks, I realized you have to do that when you're going into a room, because while I may be the expert in software in this room, I don't know everything about this problem space. I don't know everything about the domain. So you kind of have to say, you have to humble yourself and ask the silly questions, because those silly questions are the tidbits that will fill in the gap of knowledge that you need to go back and build requirements or whatever you need to do to get that software out the door. So ego is something that can, you kind of have to do this horse trade with it on a daily basis in every interaction. And so oftentimes where I see politicians fucking up is they'll get in office for a couple years. They have this, they have the confidence to get there. And of course, they lose, they win, they get in. And then what happens is now they're somehow deemed experts. Now, truth be told, these folks are supposed to sit in hearings where they have specialists come in and they have these panels, and then they get specialists come in, and those specialists, that's the opportunity for that congressperson or that senator or whoever it is, congresswoman, to ask questions. So, AOC doesn't know anything about software, or she probably had no idea how big tech works or how Silicon Valley works, but I'm sure that she may have sat on a panel. I'm only picking her out of because her name's easy to say, and it just came to my mind. So, So I imagine that there's a panel that they have to say, all right, let's try to look at this data problem with big tech. And so they have experts come in. And so that's where an ego can fuck shit up and actually kind of impact everything we're looking at. Because let's say they're having these panels, they're trying to change, they're talking about net neutrality because that's the hot button. And most of these motherfuckers don't even understand what the net neutrality is. I've argued with people that are in software business that don't fucking understand what net neutrality is. I'm not going to go into that tonight. But I will tell you that it's one of those things where, once you start to realize what it is, you're wondering what the fuck Republicans are doing, kind of battling against it, because it's truly about making sure that we have this open, free marketplace of and it comes more down to tech. But so I think where I'm going to kind of take this is that I believe that where ego can become a problem, not just saying, hey, look, watching Kevin McCarthy puff his chest, and with his nice little updo, walking around just saying, I'm going to ignore subpoenas and that kind of shit. That's a whole nother problematic, system of problems that I would like to talk about. But truthfully, I went into that a little bit today, and I was like, this is just the same old shit. The Republicans just saying, hey, this investigation's false, and they're saying, and the other side does the same thing. So I thought, you know what, it's not interesting. So that's why I threw it out to to the people to see what I could talk about. So, but let me just paint that scenario again. I don't know. I'm AOC or I'm Nate Bomberg. I'm in Congress, and I don't know anything about some topics. So we have access to pretty much anything we want information wise. The entire every institution, every agency that's available to the government, I have a liaison that I can get direct information from any of them. So there's really no excuse not to be able to put together a panel and come out of that panel with a lot more knowledge, especially if you spend time kind of preparing yourself for it. And look, I don't know much about how pharmaceutical drugs are created. So if I went to Congress and I wanted to hammer on big pharma, I would want to have a panel where I'm like, all right, talk to me about how this happens. How do you get the funding? And there would be a list of questions I'd try to compile. And I may look like an idiot to people that don't, that are in the business because I have no idea what I'm talking about. But it's important for me to get those questions across. And I'm sure that the folks on the other side know that I don't know what I'm talking about. And that's also a game of ego that has to be played because maybe they're advocating for something where they want to continue to get government funding and have no oversight on their on their drugs. And so maybe they're giving us the information that we want to hear and not necessarily what needs to happen. A little bit confusing, but let me just go back to my scenario. So we have a panel of something. We'll use pharma. I don't know how they're processing I don't know how they get their funding. I don't know what their test results. I don't know how they integrate with the FDA. How are we sure that they're not buying off FDA? What about the revolving door? All these things that might come to my mind just off the top of my head. And so if I go into that meeting and I go into that meeting with an ego and I have this idea that I know more than they do, or, I spent 3 hours researching pharma funding and I now understand kind of the basics of it. And I walk into that meeting with my chest puffed like, hey, you know what? I'm kind of on top of this. The folks that I'm questioning or the folks that I'm interviewing are going to know this, first of all, and they know they work in this business. And so what can happen is I can get bad information because my ego gets in the way. I'm not asking the right questions. I'm too, my pride comes in play because I don't want to look like an idiot. I'm on national TV. By the way, that doesn't seem to be the problem for a lot of folks in Congress to look like an idiot on TV. Let me just digress really quick because I can't not talk about the Fauci deal because it does segue into the second point. But the Fauci deal, there's a hearing. They're trying to figure out what's going on with this testing, and it's a legitimate inquiry to hammer him on what his role is, or he's the top expert. What happened wrong? Explain to us why this happened. And certainly there can be really good hard questions as somebody who puts their trust in these experts. Excuse me. As someone who puts their trust in these experts, I still want to vet them, and I still Dr. Fauci's, he's been in this position for years. I still want to know that he's on top of things. I want to know how he approaches problems, even though I might be an advocate for saying, hey, we got to trust this guy. If I'm in front of him, I still believe we need to ask tough questions because shit's all fucked up. You can kind of go back and look at the top of the food chain and see where things started to get fucked up, but that's a whole nother story. So in this hearing that they had to try to figure these serious problems out, there was a senator that, kind of had this line of attack on Dr. Fauci that suggested or implied that he may or may not be, or just kind of throwing it out there, that because of his insider knowledge on this drug process and how whether they're past the testing or whether they're actually ready to go to market, he could make investments that would, lucrative investments in the stock market that would end up paying off because of the results of some drug trial or whatever. And so this was the implication, and there was a line of questioning that went along these lines of, hey, you know what? We really struggle with knowing whether there's some he actually said shenanigans or something like that, whether there's some shenanigans going on with your income because, we don't have your disclosures. And so Dr. Fauci, it's kind of gone viral now where he called the guy, did he say fucking moron? He should have said fucking moron, but I think he said moron, then he said Jesus Christ, what an idiot or something like that. But the point is that the line of questioning is valid, but the problem with that line of question is he was saying, hey, look, I'm implying that you could possibly be making money off of your position. And so what I want to know is where's your financial disclosures? And of course, Dr. Fauci kind of lost his shit because he's like, what do you mean? They're public knowledge. You can Google them. And sure enough, you can Google them. You can Google his public disclosures and they'll take you to this government website where you can kind of go through and see all the shit. You can see, pretty much if somebody says that, if they're in government and they have to do that, there's a place that you can go. And if you're in Congress and you're going to a hearing where you want to attack this person and your line of attack is, hey, your disclosures aren't public. I don't know if that's ego or stupidity, but he obviously went into a gunfight with maybe like a pea shooter or something like that, because the truth is the information's out there. And so you've probably seen the whole thing. Bringing it back to my original point, and that is, you have to be prepared for these things. You have to be prepared to ask silly questions or questions that may kind of seem obvious to the folks on the other side of that. But if you're coming in there asking questions that pretty much are obvious to everybody that's in there, and questions that you could easily, your line of attack is to suggest that, there's not information that's publicly available, and you have access to all those institutions and agencies, I just wonder what the fuck is going on. It really made me think, like, wait a second. I always thought that these guys have staff and they have folks that will research things. They do, but what are they doing? Are they sitting around planning a political line of attack as opposed to actually validating or verifying the information? Does that relate to ego? Well, I mean, I would kind of say that it relates to ego, because it's like, you actually have the balls to go in front of somebody that's information's publicly available. And maybe it's not ego, maybe it's stupidity. And do that line of questioning without kind of figuring it out for yourself. I don't even know what goes through their head. I would go into that meeting thinking, I'm talking to the fucking national expert in vaccines and pandemics, and I'm going to come in here. I'm a little nervous because I might ask questions that are silly to him, and he may have to lecture me and tell me, I'm completely wrong. And so I would go in there kind of with an attitude of, this guy's the expert. I just want to kind of glean as much as I can. But when you see these folks attacking them, that to me looks like ego. It looks like ego. It's like, you're talking to somebody who's dedicated their life to this cause to say, hey, look, for what, six administrations he's been doing this? And so you're going in, yes, you had an MD. The guy had an MD, but I mean, come on. An MD versus somebody that specializes in something like that, it's a completely different thing. And so he went in there with his ego thinking, maybe his staff said, hey, this is the line of questioning, without even taking a second to think, wait a second, this guy works for the government. Shouldn't he have public disclosures? That's what I would do. If my staff came to me and said, hey, listen, we have this line of attack, it's going to really work to do this political slant, I'd already be pissed off, by the way. I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? I don't give a fuck about the politics. We need the fucking information because people are dying out there. Go back to your fucking room and come back with some shit to figure out the problem. I don't need a fucking line of attack. That would be my approach. But, again, these are fucking clowns in there. We've elected clowns all over the place. So he comes out with this line of attack. The first thing I would have said when I looked at that, if I was on board with this, and I would say, all right, well, he's worked for the government. Are you sure we don't know any of this information? Is there any way we can get any information that's public? I would just think that naturally would come out, not because I'm a genius, not because, I've researched it and I understand the machinations of government. It's because it would just be the obvious question, the simplest problem. Where's the simplest thing that could break? Do we already have this? And that's one of the cool things about my engineering kind of experience, which I truly believe has kind of shaped my mind. I had to work hard to get my brain around engineering. I'm not an engineer. I'm more vocal, linguistics, language. I probably should have studied language or English or something like that. Not necessarily a great writer, but I like words. I like ideas. I love when people are able to articulate really complex subjects and simplify it for folks. And so that helped me to get to the point where you kind of look at the obvious. Like, if somebody says, hey, my computer's not working, what's the most fucking obvious thing everyone says? Well, obviously it's Control-Alt-Delete, but even more obvious than that. What is it? Leave a comment if you're on. Fucking, what is it? What's the most obvious? My computer's not working right now. What's the first thing you have to fucking check? Is it plugged in? Does it have power? Does it turn on? Before we go into this bug problem or whatever it is, like, are you plugged in? Are you connected to the internet? You start with the basic things that people are like, of course I am. Of course I am. Of course I am. So you go through these silly, dumb questions because, you know what? And even though I know exactly, I understand how the chip works. I understand how the chip works with the software. I understand the whole stack. I understand how the L2 cache works. I understand how they communicate. I understand why they work. I understand where there's optimization. I understand all that shit. But guess what? The first thing I'm going to say is it on? Is it plugged in? And, you know, a junior developer might say, of course, a junior, person might come and say, well, that was obvious. Of course it's plugged in. Why would you ask that? Because experience tells me that a lot of times the problem is the simplest thing. And so that's something where you have to say, you know what, my ego does, you know what, the problem is probably something having to do with the fact that they're running 4 different renders at the same time. They've got 3 gigs of memory available and they're trying to stream at the same time. And so that's causing the problem. Might be some technical thing. I know that already, but I may start with these basic things because I have to kind of get to the bottom of it. And so what I feel like a lot of politicians kind of get in there, they get all the access to all this information, and then they're able to attack and throw jabs and do all these things and then claim, you know, that this person's not qualified when this person isn't qualified. And that's really frustrating to see folks attack Dr. Fauci in this way. This is a person that's dedicated their life to infectious disease and probably saved millions. Instead, the tack that they took was this person's caused, 5 million deaths. And there's people watching probably, getting all triggered because I said what's the word? Dr. Falsey now? That's what the fucking guy said on my feed. He's like, I wouldn't trust Dr. Falsey. What is it with the fucking name weird shit that the libtards, they love their let's go brand. They love their fucking when it comes to language, they like to have these weird indirect things that they find humorous, and I don't get it. Maybe that's why there's really no successful conservative fucking comedians that I know of. Honestly, stop. Don't bring up that guy. He's not, and you're wrong. But so I feel like there's an issue where a politician kind of their ego gets in the way. And now the other thing that happens is they realize that they have to keep their job. And so even when the shit's hitting the fan and they're doing the wrong thing, their ego can't let them break. We saw that with Donald Trump. And there was no way that guy was ever going to apologize for anything. He was never going to back down. I called it probably in June of 2010 of 2020 before the election. I said, Donald Trump's preparing because he's never going to be able to admit defeat. He's preparing in case he loses because then he can say it's fraud and his ego that's so fragile. He can then say, you know what? It was fraud. Everyone knows that. He's still doing it to this day. It doesn't matter if Jesus Christ, Buddha, or Ganesh. I need to learn more Hindu gods. That's the only ones I know. If they come down and they say, look, Donald, and they come down with their angel's wings or whatever the hell your God does, and he comes down and says, Donald, here's the truth. Donald wouldn't fucking care. He'd still say, Jesus, you're wrong, and that's probably why they crucified you. I mean, he'd say some dumb shit like that. So I think ego, we saw a megalomaniac ego and how that works, but it also can work on these little small interactions that we see, and you see these folks coming into these hearings, puffing their chest, looking to take a political attack, and then kind of just falling flat, or many times creating a soundbite that they wanted, and then that's where we end up. And so you and I just sit here go, I just need a fucking PCR test, and I'd like to know where I can get them. And then we get to watch this fucking this battle royale of words and ideas that's completely irrelevant to the problem they're actually talking about, which was said at this hearing. And so I would argue that could be looked at as an ego problem, and we need humble servants. We truly do. I know that sounds so cliche, but if you're going to be, the term public servant isn't even thrown around anymore. It's like we call them congressmen. They're public servants. They're supposed to be serving us. They're supposed to, and a servant, in typical fashion, I'm bringing up my biblical, mojo. But, servants were looked at as somebody that were down, they were serving their master and they looked up. I'm not talking about slavery. I'm talking about servants, even slavery. I mean, you had, those folks had to respect their master or feel the wrath. But the bottom line is when you're a servant, like you choose to be a servant or whatever, you end up being a servant, then you're going to, listen, you're going to watch, and you're going to learn, and you're going to kind of give some deference to whoever is kind of you're serving. And that's what's supposed to happen. But that's not happening right now. We've elected people that say, I'm going to be a public servant. Their ego gets in the way. And then they kind of feel entitled. They're entitled. I'm only going to run 2 terms. Now I like this shit. I'm going to keep running. And then their ego gets in the way, and they've not done anything in their time in Congress. And I see that all the time. It happens locally. It is 240 degrees in my room right now. So now that I have HD, you're going to be able to see me sweat. But so I would argue that politicians, that have an ego, it's important to have that confidence and that bluster to get into office. But at some point, they have to understand they're working for us. There needs to be a deference towards us. And it feels like even if you're a Democrat or a Republican, maybe you love Joe Biden and the fact that he's about ready to die, maybe on camera, and you love that shit, and you'll support him no matter what, and you probably hate that I'm criticizing him, whatever. But when you look that way and you see these folks and you see them kind of arguing about dumb shit or playing politics or raising money on somebody else's demise, you kind of wonder, like, are they really serving us, or are they just kind of making sure that they create their own legacy of time? Maybe they're looking at, maybe there's some beneficial thing to running. I believe there is. Like, you have to run for Congress. You have to be in office for 3 terms or something like that if you're a congressperson to get full pension or whatever it is. So maybe that's the thing. It definitely 100% boils down to money for these folks. There was a Republican that blasted him about that today. Adam Kinzinger said the same thing. He's like, they don't really give a shit about anything. This is his own party. He's working with these folks. Here goes my nose. Hold on. If you don't know, as soon as I get started, my nose starts. Today was a little bit earlier. Give me a second. Look, this is an MSNBC, so I can do what the fuck I want. I'll blow my nose. So you have these politicians, though, that, they end up not really serving us, and they become these megalomaniacs, essentially, not Donald Trump style, but you look at Rand Paul. When Rand Paul came into office, I'll never forget it. I've said it so many times on here. He went on MSNBC and he blasted all the senators. He said, these people don't work. He's like, we don't do shit. Go find the video. I couldn't find it either, but I watched it. I was like, yo, that's not gonna work. You can't go in there, new guy, blasting everybody and talking about the shit that they built, that this cocoon of protection that they have. You're fucking up the whole game. And everybody's part of the game. Once you're part of that tribe, then you kind of, the natural tendency for human beings, apparently, that maybe haven't had the childhood trauma I had, they want to fucking fit in. And so they got to kind of move and shake, and so he went in there kind of mavericking the shit out of it, went on MSNBC, talked about how lazy they were, how they don't get anything done, how they're like, they won't even put things to vote. And then he kind of got shushed for a little bit, and you didn't see him. He now is like on the other side of that, where he's like raising money on people's demise. He don't give a fuck. I mean, his neighbor beat his ass. Probably. I mean, was it justified? I don't know. Is it ever justified to beat? I'm not even going to say. Was it justified? Maybe. I mean, it's Rand Paul, but no, it's not justified. Violence isn't justified, but I'm sure that his neighbor probably was like, you were pretty cool before you became an asshole and your ego got in the way and you really don't do anything. And so, he got his ass beat. I'm not suggesting that we should beat up our politicians at all. I'm not even suggesting violence, but I'm using it as an example of, he changed. And maybe his neighbor saw that change and was like, dude, we were fucking cool, but now you're an idiot, and so I can't take it anymore. I'm making that up. I don't know the context of why he got his ass beat. That glorious, I shouldn't glorify that moment. It wasn't a glorious. It was pretty fucking awesome, actually, because he's a fuck. And he's gone into Congress. He was on the, he was kind of in the target of Fauci today or the other day, because, he's been, at the forefront of poking at Fauci. He's a medical doctor. He's an ophthalmologist, I believe. I think. So he's a medical doctor, I guess. I don't know. I mean, he works with the eyes, and that makes him now a vaccine expert, I guess. But he's been really hammering Dr. Fauci in any way he can. And the problem with this ego-driven approach to say, hey, now I need to score points or I need to do this, is that the problems don't get solved. And it's cool if it's your team, and I'm sitting here even reveling in the fact that Rand Paul got his ass beat. I'm reveling in the fact that Rand Paul looked like an idiot, and I'm reveling in the fact that this other senator looked like an idiot, because it's kind of my team right now. And I say team because I'm loosely affiliated with Democrats because they're not fucking batshit crazy right now. But that could change. But the ego gets in the way, and now you have these folks that aren't getting shit done. And I have people that were loyal Democrats switching party right now because they're pissed off because nothing's getting done. I'm like, are you serious? Like in Pennsylvania, if you become an independent, you basically pull your power out of the primary. You can't participate. The both Republicans and Democrats have agreed on one thing. It's like, we're the parties. There's no fucking way you're going to get a third party winner in Pennsylvania. Just not going to happen. It's going to be very difficult to do if it does happen in some fantasy land, libertarian fucking wet dream. So I think what happened with Rand Paul is a perfect example of somebody that comes in with good intentions. Look, I don't agree with his policies, but if you're going in there with good intentions, I'm okay with that. I don't agree with shit Liz Cheney says. I don't agree with shit she's voted for. I mean, unless it's something that makes sense. But however, I trust Liz Cheney more than most of the people in the Republican Party right now, because what I saw with my eyes, she's saying she saw it with her eyes. She's not denying the truth. Her ego's not getting in the way. She's not trying to protect her job. In fact, she lost her committee positions because of her approach, her desire to look at the truth. And for me, that's respectable. I don't care what party you are. If you see the truth, you might look. As I used the horrible analogy yesterday about the room that we both have to curate and take care of, and how, look, the Republicans are going to come in and change the blinds, and Democrats are going to say we don't want those type of blinds or whatever. So that's fine. That's okay. I'm okay with saying, as long as we both admit that there's a problem, we're fine. Okay, homelessness is a problem. If somebody's saying homelessness doesn't exist, I can't really try to solve homelessness with that person. And why they would say that, I don't know. But it has to be ego. It has to be protecting their own self-interest. That's the only thing I can think of. And so that's what really frustrates me right now. It frustrates everybody. Both sides do it, okay? This is a both sides moment. Both sides do this shit where they utilize this tactic to get their base riled up or whatever. The problem is it gets us nowhere. Now, whenever I both side shit, I always have to add a disclaimer. There's no fucking way Donald Trump gets through the Democratic primary. So there's the parties are not the same. There's a lot of same systems. There's a lot of same things that happen the same, fundamentally with how parties work and how coalitions form. But ideologically, and let's just say, I would say that Republicans are more keen on kind of putting all their eggs in some fucking dream cult-like being than Democrats are. Although Democrats had their Obama, but every Democrat I talked to that liked Obama said that motherfucker and his drone strikes, they weren't defending every single fucking thing. You've got people now defending every single thing, and that's an ego problem because they've tied themselves to this Donald Trump idea. And despite the fact that it goes against all the family values that they preached to me for years, all the things that they talked about are important in a leader, now they've said fuck all that shit because their ego, their team's on the right side. It's their team. And now the cognitive dissonance sets in, which is essentially saying, look, whatever, I've got to take this truth and reshape it and push it into my belief system. And now it works. Even though I've had to tear the truth into shreds to do it, it makes sense now, and I feel good. And so that's what I see on the Republican side. So that can happen on both sides, but the cult of personality thing, that's unique with that right-wing ethos. And look what happened in Germany. If you want to, look, Godwin's law, I know I shouldn't go there, but fucking, just because Nazi, the German word for Nazi had socialism in it, these were fucking authoritarians, you fucking idiot. Read some books. It was a right-wing authoritarian movement. That's exactly what it is right there. It wasn't fucking left wing. It was right wing fucking authoritarian movement. And that is something that the right has to be careful of. The left has their own issues to be careful, but I'm not going to go into those tonight because I love pointing out Republicans because they're the ones that put us in the fucking quagmire we're in right now based on exactly these things I'm talking about. The isms that they don't even see coming, the fascism they're kind of marching along
happily kind of signing off on because their ego. They just want their team to win. There was a really good article today, I think it was in the Daily Beast or the Washington Post, where it said the only policy, might have been the Atlantic, the only policy or agenda that Republicans have right now is defending their ego and owning the liberals. So that's their thing. If the liberals lose, then the party is happy, their base is happy, and they'll continue to get elected. Now think about that. So all you need to do is make the other side look stupid. Now you start to see why these hearings go fucking batshit crazy. If I can make the other party look stupid for their defense of Dr. Fauci, then now I have the upper hand, because all of a sudden they now have to kind of deal with that fallout. And quite frankly, the conflict of defending somebody like that, I've got my base all riled up because they're like, yeah, fuck them. Guess what happens? Guess what policy just got passed? Guess what law just got passed? Guess what agenda just got hammered out? Nothing. But egos got caressed and massaged, and people are like, yeah, my team won. And did you see that? Even, look, I get involved. I kind of started this talking about how I was gleeful when I watched Rand Paul look like a fuckstick today or yesterday. And I'm not saying that it's not. It's a natural thing, and I'm not going to chastise myself, but it's probably not the best thing to say. Always be looking for those moments when we have real problems, and I think our ego gets in the way, including mine. So look, I've said enough about that. I've got fucking karaoke on my mind right now, by the way. Don't worry, I'm going to fucking do it tight. I'm going to wrap this up real nice and tight and put a bow on it. But karaoke is my other outlet. And since I stopped smoking cannabis just to fucking see what happens and make my brain go crazy for a little bit, I definitely want to have a beer tonight. So just putting it out there. Anyway, yeah, that's how I roll. So let's just kind of walk into the next thing, which will kind of segue into the Dr. Fauci stuff, and talk about a post that did happen. I made a post about how you can either trust Donald Trump and Republicans who lied, or you can trust somebody that has been studying infectious diseases their entire career and is in charge and has successfully implemented and fought against pandemics all over the world, or you can trust these Donald Trump. And so, somebody came in and said, this is where the Dr. Fauci came in. They made a comment and said, I would never trust them. Oh, it also made a reference to Jim Jordan. And so it was hammering on Dr. Fauci, saying you don't trust Dr. Fauci, but you trust Jim Jordan. And so I guess these were libertarians or independent thinkers, maybe. They came in and said, I don't trust either of them. They're both liars. And so one guy was Dr. Fauci. And so I didn't get a response to it, but I asked them, I said, well, who do you trust? And that's a serious question. Who do you trust? Let's just put your ego aside and say, who should we trust right now? Who should we be getting our information from on the pandemic? I leave a comment if you watch this later and you want to leave a comment or send me a DM because I know I have 1.2 viewers currently, but leave a comment and tell me what you think about that. Like, who should we trust? Okay, I'm going to give you that you don't want to trust Dr. Fauci. And again, I'm going to argue that that's your ego talking, but I want to know, who do we trust? I'm open-minded. Who is your medical go-to person? Like, where do you think that we should be getting our information from, whether it be an entity or a channel maybe, or maybe a host of Smashing the Party because he's fucking usually right. I don't know. And again, that's my ego talk. I'm joking. Again, my nose. Hold on. This is the thing, man. This is the thing. Okay, I'm gonna have funny pictures and shit happen when I'm like, I've got 1,000 people watching, but right now I've got to just stop it and mute it. Hold on. Somebody's going to make fun of me the way I blow my nose, but whatever. So, who do we trust? Like, who do we go to? During the Trump years, nobody was trustworthy except for him. As people exited his office, they were no longer trustworthy, even though they might have been in a position of trust before, because he deemed them untrustworthy. And of course, we know this motherfucker's not trustworthy. Emperor with no clothes, balls in your face. I'll just say it because I love saying it. That's the whole thing. You've heard me say it before. But how is this guy trustworthy? How is he trustworthy? But I need to understand what these folks that are anti-Dr. Fauci, who they think they should trust. Do you believe we should put our health care decisions in the hands of politicians? And that's a fair, I mean, there's an argument to be made that, hey, these people, as you said, Nate, they sit in front of panels, they're able to get the information, and so I trust Nancy Pelosi or Kevin McCarthy to make the right decision because they're in my best interest, and maybe that's who you go to for your medical advice. Or you watch Tucker Carlson, he's made some good points, and a lot of things he said really, jibes with your fucking worldview. And so maybe that's your guy that you trust for medical advice. I just need to know, who is it? Who do we trust? We know this is all confusing. The CDC is fucked up with their information because we had the confusion at the beginning. Once you inject that confusion into the air and everyone's kind of inhaled it, you can't get it out. Because now you're trying to take that air out of it's confused air. Everyone inhaled it. So we had confusion during the Trump years of, hey, this is nothing. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. It's the flu. Blah, blah, blah. Link into fucking John Hopkins' website when you're fucking writing an article for Town Hall and it's fucking you're looking like an idiot when you're in the fucking hospital with fucking double pneumonia COVID. I don't know anyone like that. I'm just saying, this was what was going on then. Okay, this was happening because people were just like, you know what? The liberals are saying we need to trust this guy, so we're going to trust Donald Trump, and we're going to believe all the shit he has. I just need to know where you're getting who do we go to? And I'm happy to have that argument of you know what? You're right. You're right. Tucker Carlson, for whatever reason, he has been right about the pandemic every single step, so let's go to Tucker Carlson. If that's your thing. I know it's not your thing. You're not going to admit it, but stop fucking acting like you're doing real research. Stop acting like you're going around looking at multiple sites. I have a buddy that was doing that. I believe my friend was doing that. He said he talked specifically about the difference between Daily Kos and Breitbart. And so I believe he's doing that. He's trying to widen his view. I still harassed him about the fact that the 2 links he sent me were from Fox News. And I said to him, you keep on sending me links from Fox News, I'm not going to believe you anymore. But I'm joking. But the truth is, it's hard to get information. It's hard to get unbiased information. I struggle with it every single fucking day. I'm telling you. I'll go through an article. It'll be, start off with some concept that I might believe strongly in, and then I'll see a couple things that come through, and I'm like, this is a pitch. This is PR. You know what I mean? So it's a really tough time right now to get real information, and especially when the credibility of everything goes away. How does this all have to do with ego? Well, I think the ego part with this person or people is we have to be humble enough to understand that we don't know shit. We have to get to the point where we trust experts. And even though experts are going to make mistakes, this was a novel virus. That means that it was new, brand new. No one knew fucking shit about it, okay? As the girl from Ozark says. What's her name, Rose? Is it Rose? Damn it, I got to get my shit together. My pop reference culture sucked tonight. But I don't know shit about fuck is basically how every single person that's on my timeline that's not studying vaccines or not working in healthcare should be. I don't know shit about fuck, okay? I really don't. I've gotten into arguments with folks that want my opinion on things about how the epidemic's going or the lockdown, and all I'm doing is regurgitating anything that I believe or what I've deemed to be true, but I'm not credible. I don't fucking know shit about vaccines and everything else. So the question comes down to, where are you getting your information, and is your ego going to allow you to go outside of that? And what happens when you get conflicting information? Does your cognitive dissonance, which is this is my belief, and no matter what, even though I saw this and it looked different, I'm still I don't believe it. Look, I know there's no voter fraud. I know you showed me all the data on voter fraud. I know there's no voter fraud, but I know deep down in my heart there is, and we need to pass these laws. Okay, you're already at a conflict with what I'm talking about. That is, your ego got in the way because you're saying, look, you can just say I was wrong. And trust me, if you watch this show, I hate being wrong. I like being right. So I'm careful with my words. I try to not paint myself into corners. I use, tricks with words to make sure that I have an out in case I do say something wrong. And it's part of, I think, what will allow me to continue to say the truth. And also, I'm also not opposed to being wrong. I'm not afraid to say, I was fucking wrong. I talked about how I was wrong on January 6th when I was minimizing the whole thing. I didn't have enough information. I just thought it was just like this random people kind of marching along. It turns out there was all this orchestrated things happening behind the scenes. I also was wrong when I hammered somebody. I think I hammered a couple people when they were talking about this thing coming from China. But the truth is, what I didn't like about that is they didn't have any basis for knowing it was coming from China or it came from China. Nobody did. Trump said it, but how can you believe the guy? I mean, you have to start looking at somebody and say, even if they're saying the truth and they're not credible, that's problematic. And so there's when I was looking at these folks in their comments, I posed the question, who do we trust? And I'm wondering if I'm going to hear back from, but I'm also interested in saying, like, to you, if you're listening or watching along, like, who do you trust then? Who do you trust to get your information about healthcare from? I would hope you say your doctor, but what happens if your doctor's anti-vax? What happens then? Do you think that you should trust your doctor? I mean, these are questions where, I have a friend who was working on a project and they were involved with many doctors. They were in a room with a lot of doctors, and it turns out there were several doctors in that room that were anti the whole lockdown, anti-COVID, didn't believe in it, thought it was, it was hype, and that concerned me. But what do you do if your personal doctor or your person that you're going to is wrong? This happens to all of us. What do you do? That's where your ego comes in. And that's where you have to say, you know what? I got to go somewhere. I got to get a second opinion. You do it for your kid if you had cancer. You do it for your kid if you had headaches or tumors, or even for yourself. You'd say, you know what? I got to get a second opinion smartly, because, hey, you know what? This one doctor said there's no issue. This doctor said there's a huge issue. Dr. 3 said, you know what? There's a possibility of an issue, but it could be nothing. And so now you have three folks that are experts that have given you their opinion. That's the other thing that's really frustrating with the whole Dr. Fauci thing, is that this guy is giving medical opinions and advice. He's not a soothsayer. I didn't see anything on his lapel pin that suggested he was Jesus Christ or some kind of some guy from the future that could predict kind of how this virus would morph. So I give him the benefit of the doubt to say, look, it's novel. He's going to do the best he can. So I trust that he's going to compile the information and put it through him. That's who I trust. Now, he's been wrong. So that makes me wrong sometimes, right? Well, no, I don't think so. Because what it does is it says, look, if you're able to humble yourself and say, you know what, I know he's human. He may or may not be wrong. But what I can do is I can also look at other sources and look at the scientific community and what they're saying. And largely they supported him. There are fringe people now that are suggesting you can drink your urine and be cured. And that's fine. And if you're one of those folks and you voted for Donald Trump, I think that urine is a possible solution. And I would suggest strongly that, if you think that it would, if you're vaccinated and you've done all the things, but you really want to be sure and you voted for Donald Trump, I do believe that you should drink your own piss. I just think that that would reinforce your beliefs. And I think that, there's even articles suggesting that eating your own shit may actually be good for you if you take the ivermectin, the horse medicine. So if you're one of those folks, I'm not gonna hate on that. Again, don't take medical advice from me, but I'm not gonna argue against somebody that voted for Donald Trump to drink their piss, to drink bleach, to take ivermectin, horse medicine, or eat their own poop. And, I might even advocate for it just because I believe that they should have everything that they want. But on a serious note, what happens now when your ego gets in the way and you can't leave your one source of information because, you know what, you're tied to it. You're tied to Tucker Carlson, man. You love that motherfucking white supremacist asshole. He just speaks to me. You know what I mean? He says it like it is. He says it like it is, and that's what I need. I need somebody that says it like it is. What does that mean? Says it like it is. What is it? What is it? You don't know what it is. You mean they're saying it because it's comforting the way they're saying it, or they're reaffirming what your ego wants them to reaffirm, maybe? That's probably what we're looking at. So these are like kind of existential, crazy things that I'm talking about. It's like, Nate, what the fuck? You're talking all this abstract ego stuff, but the truth is, this is what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with powerful forces that understand these things that I'm talking about. They understand how to motivate and manipulate you. They understand that you're not going to join the other team. Even if they don't get anything done, they know if they can bash the other side of the team, that your fucking lame ass isn't going to do anything about it. You're going to still continue to vote for those guys. Even though these motherfuckers are working for the rich, it doesn't matter because they're your team. And wow, they really own the libtards. My ego loves that shit. So you're going to stick with that team. That's why it's important. It's important for every single one of us to self-reflect. There was somebody that came on my Facebook page yesterday. I told you I wouldn't talk about my post, but I did. Old friend of mine, good friend. We used to hang out. You know, I looked up to him. I was young and single. He was single. He was about 10 years older than me, and we just had a good time going to the beach. We drank a lot together, did all kinds of fun stuff, and we were like this, you know, this duo that we just kind of wrecked shit from the party perspective. And we were pretty close. And he came on. I had to unfriend him at some point because he lost his shit with suggesting that I'm a communist and Trump is the God. You know, God delivered Trump to us to save us from ourselves. And so I just kind of got tired of it and I blocked him. And, you know, I had to go through several layers of blocking. It was like first he would text me and I was like, all right, please don't text me that stuff. If you text me political stuff to my text message, you can send that to my messenger, but don't send it. You know, he kind of just pushed the button. So I had to block him. Well, he comes on my page the other day because I said I love the word fuck. And I do love the word fuck. I say it a lot. It's just a beautiful word. You can use it in almost any situation. This fucking pencil, fuck. I don't like that. I mean, you know the deal. It's just beautiful. It's just one of those words. It's just everything. Every single like piece of any component in grammar you can use it for. I can use it as a period. I can use an exclamation point. I can use it any way I want. So it's a beautiful word. You're not going to take it away from me. You took retard from me. Respectfully, I don't say that anymore, but I'm okay to give it up because I respect and I appreciate why that's detrimental to the cause of folks that are autistic and everyone else that has mental challenges. So I joke, but I'm not giving away fuck. Fuck is staying. It's going to be here to stay. He came on. He didn't like he swears. He says fuck. We smoked weed. We probably did blow together back in the day. Whatever. We did all kinds of crazy shit, right? We were party guys. And so he said I was a communist, and then he made the comment that I don't respect people by using this word. And I have to just say, you know what? You're not respecting my ability to communicate. And if you just get over the fuck word, you understand that everything I'm saying is this is how I emote. And so it was like his ego. He's still chasing me. I haven't talked to him for a while. He came to my page, had to get in there and throw some jabs on a fucking funny meme that I posted. And, you know, I kind of went back at him and I felt bad about it. I said something to the fact that, you're just upset because you've made bad choices and that's why you're single and broke. Very, very harsh, very, very harsh. And I had to check myself. I didn't delete it because I wanted to sting, but my ego got in the way and I was like, you know what? I didn't need to say that. But I think his ego got in the way because somehow he's butthurt from something, maybe being blocked. Maybe he wants to be my friend again. But the ego got in the way for him, and the ego probably would get in the way for me because I really can't find. I guess I have too much pride to allow that kind of toxicity in my life again. I'll be honest with you. So I'm justifying mine. But the point is that ego can actually affect every single little interaction we have, whether it be a post or, I'm promoting something. I struggle with self-promotion. You might not believe that, but when I was in the mortgage business, I'm like, I hate talking about myself and pushing myself. And yes, I'm good at networking events, but I'm really uncomfortable because I really don't like small talk. And so I was always, people just assume that I'm a certain way. And it's not how I am. I believe I'm an introvert that just likes to be extroverted every now and then. That's how I would argue. I roll solo and there's always kind of people inside my brain saying how shitty I am. This just imposter syndrome just envelops me. Look, there's not real voices, but that's just kind of my mantra. I've shared that before. So the ego for me is something that when I exude confidence, it's nice and it's genuine and it's not because I'm trying to hurt somebody else. And let me just wrap the Sam saga. Sam, I do love you, brother. If you're watching, I don't think you watch, but I kind of warned you several times on not doing what you're doing. I was triggered pretty much on anything during the Trump years. That's kind of how this evolved. And so you continue to do it, and I had to just kind of wipe it. So I will apologize, but I'll leave the comment there. But my ego got in the way a little bit. I had to kind of throw a jab there. His ego got in the way. Every single interaction we have a just choice on how we want to make that other person feel. And sometimes our ego can get in the way. And it can make that interaction fucked up. And so we have a whole Congress full of folks that are full of ego, that are looking for to preserve their legacy, and somehow it's come to their mind that preserving their legacy means to make the other side look stupid. These aren't public servants. This is not the fucking kind of egotistical motherfuckers we need to elect. We need people that, you know what? People are hammering on AOC. I love her story. She fucking worked at a bar. She was a bartender. She got her education. She's hustling in New York. You know what? I'm tired of this shit. I'm running. That's the fucking American dream. What's so special about Mitch Romney, who has a family history and millions of dollars? It's really not that exciting. Of course, he can make a phone call and have a focus group put together. He can make a phone call and have a campaign manager put together. He can do it. So it's really, I mean, it's not that fucking hard when you got that much resources. But to see someone grind it out with nothing, come on, fucking Republicans. Why the fuck aren't you holding her in high esteem? She's not trying to tear away the fabric of this country. This country made her. But again, the ego. I mean, I already talked about the weird sexual comments that I get from conservatives when I talk about AOC every single fucking time. And it's funny because shortly after I said that, there was an article that posted, and she actually said that on Twitter. She's like, their weird fetish with my shit is just weird. It's weird. It's weird. I've said it. I called it out. But ego is what's getting in the way for folks that, you know, could make decisions or could have interactions that are beneficial for everyone, but instead they're looking at self-preservation. I do it. Everyone does it. I'm going to move into me real quick because I definitely want to sing some karaoke. But let me kind of wrap my points together so I can put them in some kind of slot for you. I said I was going to freestyle tonight and talk about ego. I wanted to talk about politicians, and I think the point I was trying to make today was that their ego is preventing them from getting correct information. It's changing their tactics on how they operate in Congress and their motives, and the folks that are following them and who they're feeding their red meat to. That's all ego driven. They're trying to sustain some kind of facade or legacy or create some kind of, they're no longer the humble public servant that we hoped they would be when they got elected. Then I talked about a couple people that made some posts. I really want to know what happens to people when their core source of truth is fallible, and what happens then, and what your ego does to resolve that. So do you just say, you know what? Yeah, I know they're wrong, but fuck it. I'm still going with it because yeah, that's my guy. I mean, is that your tact? I don't know. My tact is like, fuck, Fauci's wrong. Let me see what other scientists are saying. All right, yeah, he was wrong, but there's a lot of collaboration. I know this is kind of a lot too. I mean, we're in this time where it's like, in order to really understand what's going on and what the real motivation of everything is, it's fucking painful because no one's doing. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna make a promise. I have an agenda, 100%. I don't have a liberal agenda. I don't have a fucking conservative agenda. But I will say this. I'm going to do everything in my fucking power to always speak the truth. And if I'm not sure of something, I'm going to have a disclaimer that says, you know what? I'm not an expert in this. Here's what I believe. So am I saying that you should trust me? Absolutely, 100%. But I'm fallible and I'm going to make mistakes. But I'm also saying that I'm going to make a commitment to truth, and I'm going to put my ego aside. When I make mistakes, I'm going to correct them, and I'll correct them even if I'm publicly wrong. I mean, I was wrong about some things with the whole Russian stuff. We'll get into that later, I promise. I want to touch on that because that's still ongoing. But I got caught up in a bubble, but it turns out a lot of that stuff happened. But I need to come clean and say, look, these were some things this was misinformation. This was a misinformation campaign, and I'm okay to admit that. I mean, I was invested in the demise of Donald Trump because of his racist incompetence that I saw clearly, but that was leading me to believe things that may have been reinforcing what I wanted to happen and may not necessarily have been true. So I have to humbly kind of, at some point, I have to process that and say, you know what? All right, that information was coming from this source, and while that source is credible, they're fallible and they didn't have good information. So it's a whole thing. I know this is kind of jarbled and confusing probably if you're just walking in, but my point is that these are like kind of abstract influences on our legislators, on you, on me, on how we interact, how we're going to grow this country, how we're going to make this country great again. Jesus Christ, I hate saying that. And it's important for us to kind of look at our politicians and say, are they really serving us? Are they kind of trying to puff up their ego? You know, Dr. Fauci came with receipts and said, Rand Paul, you're not being genuine to your people. You're raising money off me. That's your ego talking. You're using this for political gain. Of course, that didn't sit well, but That was a good call. And then on the other side, Dr. Fauci needs to answer questions that he's responsible for. I didn't see those. Those didn't make the viral. They weren't sound bites. There were some tough questions. I did watch some of the hearing, and there were normal questions. But I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. I was just like, is this whole thing a fucking crazy like this? And the whole thing wasn't crazy like that. But, of course, those got the highlights. Water. My lips are dry. All right. So anyway, I like licking my lips and my nose. 1 second. Then I'm gonna wrap with me. Trust me, you're gonna like it. Just hang on. All right. So I talked about the politicians. I talked about the folks, and I want to know where they're coming, what they're gonna do when their information's wrong, or if they're not trusting Dr. Falsey, then who they're trusting. Maybe there's a Dr. Truthy or Dr. Oz. I don't know, whatever. The final ego, the ego we're going to talk about is mine. And I'm going to use a couple anecdotes, and I'm going to tell you genuinely how I think, and I'm going to bear it because I've encountered many times in my career of people assuming that I'm cocky. I've been told this, and it's devastating when I hear it, and I will tell you why, but that is the last job I had, and I know I have folks that work there that watch me, but I'm going to say it. I don't care because it was fucked up. I do believe there's a little bit of an issue with there might be some folks that work there that may have issues with people of color. Okay? I'm just going to say that. Not my boss or not my friend, and I encountered this, and several other people encountered different interactions that, look, I'm not an idiot. This isn't my first fucking rodeo. I can interact. I can take jokes. I can make jokes. But I know, man, I've been in this fucking skin, this sleeve, as they would say in carbon fiber or whatever, the show, Altered Carbon, where they swap out their bodies. I've been in this sleeve, this body, my whole life. So when somebody tells me that I don't know what I'm talking about, when I have an interaction, whether somebody has a bone to pick with me or kind of looks at me out of the corner of their eye or talks to me, won't make eye contact with me, or will only look at my wife when they're talking. I know an interaction. I can. There's a lot of bells and whistles that go off when I have these interactions. I have them on a regular basis. Now I don't go out as much. I'm kind of living in this room in the studio lately, but when I was kind of doing the whole going everywhere and driving everywhere and going back and forth to Philly, almost every day there was an interaction where there's going to be black people in my timeline are going to say, dude, you're fucking paranoid. I'm not fucking paranoid. I can tell you to the point where I walk in, you're going to understand why this is ego, I promise. I walk into a local establishment and the local establishment they're not racist, but we walked in and there was somebody there, and the way they were talking to me, I kind of just I was like, all right, I can tell they're kind of being weird. And we got in and we sat down, and my buddy, who really doesn't talk about this, he's like, whoa, holy shit, that was kind of fucked up. And I'm like, yeah, actually, that's not true. I said, what's fucked up? He's like, well, that whole thing was kind of weird. He's like, that guy was totally fucking racist. And I'm like, oh, yeah, definitely, 100%. I'm like, yeah. What do you want? You want a Corona, or you want a fucking, what do you want to drink? Like, I was like that. It was like, yeah, of course. I went to a birthday party with friends where it was in Maryland. It was on a deck, and I was like, dude, this place isn't fucking fun for me. Of course, there's Trump signs everywhere. I'm like, this isn't cool. And I said, I'm not feeling comfortable here. And he was like, dude, it's cool. And everyone that I was with was cool. But then he started watching, and he was like, holy shit, I didn't realize. You're right, man. They're fucking looking at you. People are like, it's weird. So, I mean, that's just something you learn to deal with. It happens here, like, in the city, whatever. I walk into a store, and I'm the only one in the store, and I'm being watched. Even at 47, I'm being watched. I know. You have this guy comes out of nowhere in this store that I'm in, and he's just kind of following me, kind of shuffling things around while I'm looking at stuff. And what I usually do is I'll just kind of stand back and just wait for him to meander away. But that person's coming out to watch me. It happens, okay? So when somebody calls me cocky, I'm just going to bring it back. It kind of rips me apart because there are moments, there's moments where I feel confident, and there's most of the time though, there's this there's this kind of pressure on me going, look, everyone had these high bar for, when I was young, they did these testing. So I tested high. So I had these high expectations. And I basically failed at all of them going through high school. Wasn't in the gifted class, skipped a grade, skipped kindergarten or some shit like that. Because I could read before I went to school, which is great, right? I was basically abandoned and learned on Sesame Street, for Christ's sake. I'm not pitching trying to pull your heartstrings, but I learned how to read on Sesame Street, and so when they did the tests, I was able to read, and so they put me in this tier of intelligence, and then from then on, I had this bar where if I came home with a B and my brother came home with a C, I got grounded and he didn't, and that was my fucking life for years. Facts. I was expected to get A's. They moved me around the school, moved me around. And my parents didn't know what the fuck. They didn't understand the ADHD at that time, and they did their best they can. No fault of theirs. But that kind of hung over me my entire life of, I'm supposed to be this fucking smart guy. I can't get through this shit. I can't focus on this shit. Fuck reading that book. I'd rather do this. And so it just kind of affected how I thought about myself. And so I had to kind of go through and rip all that apart, and that's why I'm able to talk about it. But the bottom line is, ego was something that, like, I never felt, and there's never really been a time, it's not true that I don't feel confident, but there's never been a time where I said, you know what, I'm better than everyone here, and, no one even deserves to kind of touch my shit. Now, what's weird about that is when I was over at my buddy's house, and we were watching this thing on, what was his name? The dude that was a really good baller, Jason Williams. We were watching the thing on Jason Williams, and he was talking about how he was just like a street baller. He was awesome. Go watch his highlights. It's dope. But he was so humble. But yet, you know what? When the guy asked him, he's like, did you know you were going to the NBA? He's like, yeah, I did. He's like, nobody else did, but I did. And so that, to me, is not cocky. He just had a straight vision for where he was going. It was so humble the way he said it, too. It was just like, he's like, yeah, I knew I was going to the NBA. No one else did. And every single time, he's like, I practiced. He's like, that trick move where I did the elbow trick, I practiced that. I was waiting for the opportunity. Everything I did, I practiced. Hard work, practice. I'm sure in his mind, he's like, no one believes in me. I'm fucking doing it. I'm going to the NBA. I'm fucking going to the NBA. I know I'm not as tall as everybody. I'm a white boy from Louisiana, where the fuck he's from. I think it was Louisiana. And I'm going to the NBA. No one else thinks so. And I think he went to school with Randy Moss. So I'm not a sports guy, so I'm fucking everything up. Deal with it. But what I loved about that was someone might say, someone might hear that and think, man, that guy's cocky. It was so humble the way he said it. He's like, I had this vision. I knew where I was going. That's not ego. That's confidence, and that's vision. That's direction. And so there are times where I've been like that in my life, and sometimes for the wrong things, okay? Sometimes I was chasing the wrong dreams or having the wrong motivation or trying to rack up this or do that. Motivations were skewed. And I had a pure vision. It wasn't cocky. It was never cocky because inside, it wasn't like I was thinking I was better than somebody. I just knew I wanted to get somewhere. And so I remember when I was at my last place of employment, which was very good to me. And again, they don't have a culture of racism. They're very highly esteemed. They're awesome. I do have an issue with an individual there. I don't know if they work there anymore, but I hope not, because what I'm saying is fact. And I have receipts. Very good company, by the way. I'm sorry I had to say that, but it's true. Again, this is my fucking show. I'm just going to be honest, and there's no pain I'm inflicting on anybody. I'm trying to avoid names, but this incident happened, and this was brought to my attention that this person basically told me I'm cocky. And I've heard that so many times in certain jobs, especially when I'm doing really well. And it's typically by somebody who's threatened by how well I'm doing. And I knew that, but it still stings. It's like, no, I'm not trying to be, I'm a fucking software architect after fucking 5 years in this business. I'm fucking cocky. I'm like fucking scared as fuck I'm going to make a mistake every fucking day. I'm questioning everything I do. I had a guy that I really got along with who's awesome, good friend. And we both cried in front of each other before. Like, holy fuck, this is stressful. Like, cried at fucking work, man to man, like, and this is computer software, dude. You're like, what the fuck are you crying about? The pressure's immense. Millions of dollars on the line. Your fucking reputation. And I'm cocky. I know that if I have this project and I have people underneath me, I need to be confident and have a vision for where I'm going. Is that cocky? So I think there's also, for me, ego has come down to, it's something where people kind of assume because I have a vision for something that I'm cocky, when they have no idea the turmoil and the things that I went through or why I have this approach. And I would say that I'm not going to compare myself to the great Jason Williams, but I would say that if someone really sits down with me and asks me and talks to me, you're going to understand, like, I'm confident that I can make this platform work. I'm not cocky because right now, somebody today posted on my Instagram, look, dude, you have like, they said 800 followers. I'm like, I have 800 followers. I was like excited. I'm like, what the fuck? I have 800 followers. I have 300 followers. They made a mistake, but they're like, you have 800 followers. My niece has more. My 11-year-old niece has more than that. I'm like, he's right. He's not wrong. It stings, and I told you this year I'm not worrying about my numbers, but it stung a little bit. I had a couple people come in and defend me a little bit, but it stings because he's right. I don't. It was kind of funny that when he did write 800, I pulled my phone. I'm like, I had 800. I was like, so excited. It's 300. It's like 300 and some. So you fucking fucked me twice there, buddy. But the point is, like, when he said that, I could certainly, that stings, but that's why I'm not cocky about this. I'm sitting here with maybe 5 people. I can't tell because I don't have it up. I don't know how many people are watching, but not many people watching. I love it. This is my therapy. This is my outlet. But to be cocky is to suggest that I'm better than other people. And I've told you many times, my journey is about making this the best I can make it. And there's going to be someone that's going to look at this after I think it's the best, and they're going to be like, dude, that's total shit. And so I know that. And so when it comes to the things that I decide to do or how I approach them, I try to have a clear vision of where I want to go, but it's different than being cocky. Do I have an ego? Of course. Do I want to protect myself from pain and do certain things maybe potentially that may be a facade? I think a lot less than I used to. In fact, I asked my wife, and I've asked people that know me, I haven't really changed that much. Maybe I'm able to speak and look people in the eye as opposed to being shyer or timid. I was very timid around women when I was younger, and that's no longer the case because I look at human beings. It's like that's a person I'm interacting with. There's no, I'm not trying to put a facade up to create this image of this person. So there's none of that. So I would argue that, this is the genuine real deal here. And while I've had bouts of confidence, there's a difference between being egotistical about this and being confident about where I'm going. And so when somebody said talk about ego, I'm like, what the fuck am I going to talk about? I had to whip this up. But I thought that anecdote really kind of stuck out to me of, when I get somebody that I work with that I'm doing well at, and I had a pretty quick rise to the position I was at based on the time. And I feel proud that I was able to get to that position. Probably a lot of salesmanship and mistakes were made. And maybe people regretted putting me in that position once I started to lose my mojo and started getting bored of it. I didn't create any chaos, but the truth is I'm happy and proud with those things. And you can be proudful and not be egotistical about something. And so I'm just putting it out there. Look, I have a vision for this. I believe I can get there. But the ego is something that, like, I'm like literally a nobody. And I have to consistently tell myself, hey, dude, ignore those voices because you're fucking doing it. I get back on the mic and I'm slinging words and throwing emotion at you. And, I feel good about it. But the next day, I have to go through that same process of going, all right, dude, don't look at your numbers, don't look at the comments, and ignore Facebook telling you, like, you could have, telling me I have 15 views on a video that I put an hour and a half into. That's fucking humbling. And I'm just writing that out because I believe that if I continue to speak the truth and I continue to just pound away and be consistent, I got to work on my consistency. If I can do that, then I'm going to be able to hit the vision. And then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to come back to that fucking screenshot. And this is my ego talking. I'm going to fucking screenshot that. I'm going to, maybe I'll have somebody call him and say, hey, how many followers do you have? Where's your 16-year-old niece? That sounds weird. That's creepy. I can't do that. But maybe she'll be 21 at the point. I'll say, where's your niece? I want to know how many followers you are because you made the comment that she has more. Maybe I'll do that someday. Maybe that's my dark revenge, and maybe my ego's getting in the way. Maybe this is all just a farce. I'm talking out both ends of my mouth. But the truth is, inside what's going on in my head is that I have a vision for where I want to go. And when people think that I'm cocky or too confident, overconfidence, I don't really believe. Maybe when I was single and my priorities were shifted, there was a time where I exuded overconfidence because I thought that bravado would help me to meet women. I definitely would say that was true. But I would say that in many situations, I'm definitely kind of feeling like, hey, I don't really fit here, or there's these people are way outclassing me. And I'm a lot of times in the corporate world when I was working, I was the only black person in the room. And so, of course, that's always difficult. I'm working in a corporately, tech is largely at the top. That's not to say there's not a large Asian population in it and a large Indian population. But as far as African-American, I celebrated that one day that there was 4 of us from our company. That's why I'm saying this company's not racist. 4 of us from this company in the room. And I actually I looked at my brothers and sisters of color and I said, you know what, guys, this is a fucking awesome moment. And I hope they remember that, because I remember thinking, this is an awesome moment. Look around, and we're the majority in this thing. This is a good moment. And that might sound weird to you, and I don't think the customer was in the room at that time. I believe they weren't. But I just thought, that was a rare moment. And so kudos to my last company. While I kind of slammed one person, that company was great to me. And that happened at that company because my boss was open-minded, was not in the least bit racist, and was a very good supporter of me and actually helped me a lot. So I have nothing but goodwill towards him. However, as his organization grows and they're kind of finding new people, he's going to run into the point where he's going to have different personalities and so forth. And so that's just what happens. But anyway, so that not only being the only black guy in a room was intimidating oftentimes in an engineering world where I'm kind of quickly rising to the ranks of making executive decisions on the path of this software, this complicated system that I'm designing, whatever it is, or this complicated problem I'm solving. And so I always felt like, man, I gotta, and I think a lot of that stress of always feeling that really kind of shortened my career because it burned me out. I was always like I had to, workaholic, 32 hours in a row kind of shit. What happens? How much production do you get after like 10 hours? But I'm staring at the screen, fucking doing crazy shit for, not sleeping and all that shit because I did not have the confidence. I did not feel like I was, I was in the right place. I felt like I was batting way over my, my normal average and so forth. So, of course, this is my show, so of course I'm going to put a nice spin on me. But if you know me or people that talk to me or people that know me in high school, it's really not that fucking different. Still fucking wacky, crazy. I'm still the same person. I still feel like when I'm around certain people that I am, they have more of an advantage in many things. And so ego has been something I've had to struggle with where I've had to say, people are calling me cocky. In the meantime, internally, I'm struggling with whatever the fuck it is. And so, it's devastating to hear that when somebody says I'm cocky. And I'm sure there's people in my family that think that because I'm not as talkative around certain people. And when I get in that dynamic, 15 people in a family, there's all kinds of dynamics. And I was kind of at the shit end of the stick I was one of the younger kids that, kind of shit rolled downhill, in my opinion. And so I was, my personality that my family sees might be slightly the introverted version of Nate and the kind of sharp, snappy, but yet introverted person that's kind of awkward. And that's because there's a whole dynamic that goes along with that of why that is. And by the way, these are all things I'm comfortable talking about because, dude, I don't like look at problems and just go, all right, let's fucking just close it. I like to fucking get them out in the light and look at them. And so these are things I've worked on. And I've done a lot of self-evaluation. Am I fucking perfect? I'm not fucking Tony Robbins or even Gary Vee or Oprah. But I definitely feel like I've taken a path where it's like I've self-reflected to the point where I know who I am. I know who I am. Sometimes with this show, I'm like, shit, I'm going to piss off my family and friends. But you know what? I still know who I am. And if they know me, they know that my intentions are good and that my ego is not going to get in the way. And everything I'm doing is because I have a vision for what I think I can do for people around me and for folks. And obviously my ego there is an ego-driven thing I have to admit, and that is I need to have something that lives on past me. I don't have kids. My pugs, it's a shame. It's a fucking crying shame they can't live forever. But so there is a little bit of ego-driven ness about the fact that I want to have something that will live beyond me. And when you put yourself on film, it kind of is pervasive and you live forever, essentially. If you can find a way to get popular enough, you can be in the public sphere forever. And I that's not an original concept. I actually read that from one of the folks that was in the Harry Potter series, and he said, you know, my character is going to live forever, and that's pretty awesome. And I thought that really kind of struck me as, you know what, that's pretty cool. That's a great way to have a legacy, and not have a legacy in the normal sense of having children. So, look, I'm going to wrap. I don't know whether I did good or not. This was total freestyle, no planning. I literally kind of whipped this up right beforehand, so I kind of wanted to see how I could do it, and it was an abstract topic, and I tried to spin it so that we could talk about it in those three concepts of politician, people, and then kind of end with myself. And I'm going to talk about myself forever, so I'm going to wrap with that. What time is it? Can I still do karaoke? Damn, I went long again. What the fuck? I can't shut the fuck up. I thought this was like 45 minutes. All right, anyway, listen. So the only thing, I'll give you a call to action. The only thing you need to do is like start checking the motivation of the folks you're listening to. Start checking your own sources. If your source is fallible, it doesn't mean they're fallible every time, but it's not a bad thing to kind of humble yourself and reach out across the aisle or to other sources or things that might make you uncomfortable, because it's going to make you a better person. It's also going to make you more enlightened and understanding, and also be able to argue your own position better when you have more information. You humble yourself. You're able to kind of take in information. You're not on the defense all the time. And so you're able to kind of hear what's going on, and then you're able to kind of argue your position better. So I think ego is important. I'm glad this person brought this up to me as a topic, and I hope that I was entertaining, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I will be back on Monday. That's it. I'm off tomorrow. I'm going to use these next 3 days to kind of work on some of the polish. I told you when I got the new camera, things were all whacked out. I mean, I wish I could show you. I have probably, let me see how many scenes I have. So a scene is basically like what you see on the screen, and like this scene that you're looking at is just that fist, right? So that's 2 elements on this scene. I have, and then like if I change it to the starting scene, like this scene, if it's still connected, if I change it to this, yeah, then that's a different scene. So anyway, I don't know if that changed or not. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. So that's one scene. That has a timer on it that has the nightcap, the fist. So then I go back to the other one. So I have probably, I'm just going to look. Hold on. Heavy cream. I don't know why I did that. I have maybe 75 different scenes. And then each of those scenes have different elements. And so because of the way I was doing things before, I tied everything to the resolution. I didn't make it flexible. And from a programming standpoint, I made it huge boo-boo. I just didn't know what I was doing. But I have all these scenes, and when I went to put them back together with this new camera, with the new resolution, first of all, I didn't really need the green screen anymore, and so that changed some things. So I'm going to be working on that. I'm going to hopefully get all that pizzazz I told you I was bringing to the table into this new camera, with this new camera, the new resolution. I will also have another camera. I'm also having some cool little tricks that I'm going to work on. So these next 3 days, that's what I'm going to be working on. So in the meantime, go back and check out some of my old stuff, share, like it. I also want to end with a gratitude. I mean, you guys did a fantastic job again yesterday. I made the request that you share, like my stuff. I even had strangers doing it. And it just, I can't even say, I don't even know how to I'm a broken record. Thank you. It's awesome. This is like a dream come true, this journey that I'm taking. One of my friends who, is definitely a supporter of this journey just said he's really excited about going along this journey with me and seeing where it goes. And that's fucking awesome. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. It's going to be riffraff, scrappy, fucking backyard bullshit, but we're going to get this thing tight. And with your help, we can actually make some differences. And it's not just for Nate's ego or his legacy, but the real intent of this whole thing is to make people change their minds and hearts so we can actually have, Gary Vee says it all the time, empathy, and I have some issues with some of the things he says, but he's not fucking wrong 99% of the time. And that is, empathy and kindness and happiness. Really somebody said, there was a quote, some Buddhist quote about happiness, and I truly believe like there's some prototype of this universe, whether we're in if we're in a meta universe and there's multiple copies of it, let's just make that up, and there's multiple copies. There's some version of this world or universe where everyone can have the things that they want. We can all be a community, and we can all, and I'm not talking about social communism shit. I'm talking about like, you can have your own vision for your life and your family and thrive. And you can do that in a safe environment and in an environment where you're not just taking advantage of other people. This isn't pie in the sky shit. It's not fucking socialism. I haven't read Marx. It's just that I believe that. And so that is really the motivation here. And so this journey that we want to go on, if you follow and you help me get there, you can hold me the fire on this. But that's my ultimate goal. And even if I get to the point where I said, if I get to 50,000, if I'm able to sustain like an income of $50,000 a year somehow from this, honestly, I'm successful. That has hit the mark for me. So we're not talking, overtaking Ben Shapiro or Joe Rogan's podcast. We're talking about getting to the point where it's sustainable, we have an audience, and we're making changes even locally or national. So just want to say thank you to everybody, and specifically Dennis, thank you always, because you reacted. Your input today was nice, and I appreciate it. You've been there since the beginning, and obviously we went to college together, and we did our shenanigans together and so forth. And I just want to say thank you specifically to you, but also everybody else, my brother. I mean, just go through a list. At some point, I'm at fucking credits with all the folks that are helping me. Those dark times where I'm like, man, I can't do this. That they push me over the hump. And now we're rocking and rolling, and I love it. So thank you. I'll see you guys on Monday at 10:30. That'll be week 3. Then we got another week, and then we're going to take off a whole week. So just so you know, we're 4 weeks on, and then we're off. This is the fucking dream schedule that I want. This is the life that will allow me to maintain my mental health and maintain my fire so that I can bring the noise to you motherfuckers. Thanks again. I'll see you guys Monday. Peace.